I think we're up and recording. Looks like I got some sound. Hopefully that little line that's blinking over there in the corner of my screen is indicating that it's working. So welcome to the podcast, Colonel and the Kid podcast. It is September 24th, Wednesday, the year 2025. And very busy show today. You may have noticed something different if you're watching this in the previous shows. In the background, I have a bear rug hanging on the wall, bearskin rug. So different than from the blank wall I had with just a picture of the Colonel and the Kid previously, the little black and white printout. So we've really improved the background so far. Well, I think so. Maybe some would um, dispute that fact that it's better. And then if you're in, like I said, if you are watching this, you may have noticed that now I'm not wearing a toupee on my head. It's a coonskin cap, and that's coming up later in the show. You'll understand why I'm wearing that. But I want to say that it's a lot warmer on my head than I expected. So um, hopefully my face won't get too red during the show if you're watching, but it might because it's warm. And I didn't know if I should go headphones over the cap, which I ended up doing, or under if I try to put the cap on top of the headphones, it wasn't fitting quite right. And I was afraid that it might just fall off randomly. So I decided to go under, and I probably look even more ridiculous. It actually looks like just my hair. If you can't block off the tail, it looks like I have this really weird hairdo from like the early 1970s possibly. But all right, that's enough about that. Let's get to the podcast and talk about the Colonel and the Kid. And again, Colonel and the Kid is based on the memoir of my grandfather, Colonel Edwin P. Hagen Jr., and it's the spine of the podcast. I think there's 52 chapters. So if I do one podcast a week, that would be one whole year of podcasts. I'm trying to do more than that, try to get 2 podcasts in, but I will say one of the reasons that I have the bear skin rug behind me is I am going bear hunting tomorrow, and hopefully, I'm hoping I can get one right away. But if I don't, it's really nice just to be out and about, out in the forest and elk country. But I guess this time it's bear country, if you want to call it that. Just um, got a new predator call. It's really, I guess, kind of zeroing in on bears. But I'm guessing other predators might be interested in coming to it. But I think it's more geared to the bear-sized predator, maybe even mountain lions. I do have a mountain lion tag. Actually, they give you 2 mountain lion tags here in New Mexico, 1 bear tag. And that's the thing I got to check. I got to check and see if the season's still open for bears, because they have a quota of bears. And once they hit the quota, then they shut the season down. That could happen anytime. So you got to make sure you're legally hunting and the season is open for your unit. So that's one thing I need to double check before I head out tomorrow. Make sure I'm legal. But there you go. That's my plan for hunting and podcasting. Try to squeeze everything in. And today's show is pretty big because of the NFL preview, NFL recap, and then the NFL preview for this coming week. Since I'm going to be out, I'll be out till Saturday if I don't get one. So I will be. We'll be back to watch the games starting Sunday morning. I guess I'll miss the game tomorrow night. I can hear it maybe on my radio, but it's a trade-off. You can go out and enjoy yourselves out in the woods, or you can sit at home comfortably on the couch. And I've decided to rough it a little bit this next few days, so we'll see what happens. But I'm making my picks a little ahead of time, and we'll share them with you coming up here, and hopefully they're good picks. But I will recap and see what the score is on my picks so far, and and just try to keep pushing forward with the NFL season and hunting season. It's a combination of seasons going on. We are officially in autumn. It has turned the calendar, and we're almost through September now. It's crazy how time flies, but I'll be gone hunting, as they say. So let me leave you with that, and we'll just jump right into the first segment, which I'm torn between how to describe this. I either want to call it verbal abuse or abusive language. Maybe I can get some feedback and you can tell me which you like better. But this was kind of inspired by my discussion about the W or double V and how the English language is very confusing, and we don't know what we're doing, but we accept it and we just go about our business like everything's normal. When if you're from a different country and don't know English and you're just learning English, you might see this and say, this is so confusing. But today in the topic, which I'll call it verbal abuse today. Today's topic is fraud or defraud. So what's the difference? I mean, typically, you'd commit fraud and you deceive somebody and you're stealing money probably, or you defraud the government, something like that. But defraud versus fraud, usually the defraud is it's undoing fraud. If you're going to be debunking something, you're going to prove something is false. And if you're going to defund something, like they had a while back, defund the police, they want to take the funds away from the police. So you're defunding. So if you're defrauding the government of money, are you reversing fraud and you're actually curing the problem? But when we say, like, you don't pay your taxes, you say, oh, they're defrauding the government by not paying taxes. And I guess we accept all these words as if that's the way it is, and it is the way it is. But I like to dive down and figure out, well, what is the real meaning of how we got to where we are. And today, I didn't really dive down very much. I just wanted to point that out, and you can figure it out yourself, because I'm going to move on, because I got a very busy schedule to talk about the NFL preview and NFL recap. So I'm going to leave it right there, and you can think of your own defraud, debunk, defund words and how they are, I guess, contradictory. And feel free to email me or contact me about your concerns with the English language, and I will try to, maybe I can just include them in the verbal abuse category for each show, or the verbal abuse topic. So I'm trying to establish, I guess, a running themes besides the Colonel and the Kid part, the Colonel and Kid memoir. But as the show gets better, hopefully it gets better as the show goes along. I should say, as the show goes along, we're going to have different gags, if you want to call them, topics, and we can revisit them and add on to the library of my concerns with the English language and language itself. So anyway, moving forward, let's go ahead and jump into the NFL picks. This is it wasn't a bad week. I never did tally it up. Maybe I'll do that at the end here. But the Dolphins at the Bills, like as predicted, the Bills won. Packers at Browns. That was a surprise. I thought the Packers would win that game. I thought it was going to be very competitive. I think I told you, but the Browns pulled it out on a last second field goal, and very, very poor decision making by Jordan Love, quarterback for the Packers. So I'm very happy, since I'm a Vikings fan. So that was a great ending to that game. Colts dominated. Vikings, I thought that was going to be a battle of defenses, and it turns out Cincinnati's just terrible all over, and the Vikings just pummeled Cincinnati Bengals. Unbelievable. So Steelers at Patriots. Steelers won that game, correct? Yeah. They didn't look very good, but I think they pulled it out. Eagles That was one of the blocked kicks that they had. They had a multitude of blocked kicks in last week's NFL Week 3, and it was pretty entertaining. Of the first the early games, Eagles held on. They blocked a field goal at the end and ran it back for a touchdown, which would have given the Rams the victory at the buzzer. But Eagles held on. Jets at Buccaneers, kind of the same thing. The Jets blocked a kick, field goal, and ran it back for a touchdown, and tied the game. But the Buccaneers came through and ended up kicking a field goal at the end and winning that game. Redskins, Raiders at Redskins. Redskins kind of dominated that game. I think some statistics made Raiders look a little better, but I think it was pretty dominating. And I think Terry McLaurin, wide receiver for the Redskins, got injured, and that's going to be very troublesome in the coming future for the Redskins. So we'll see how they can do. I'm not sure if I picked them this next week, but we'll get to that. Texans at Jaguars. Jags won. I picked them. Broncos at Chargers. I think I ranted and raved about that game for a while, and I was very glad the Chargers came back and pulled that out. That was a good comeback, and to beat Sean Payton's Broncos, it does the heart good. Saints at Seahawks. That Saints are a terrible team. Seahawks beat them so bad. It was pathetic. I think Seahawks were ahead 35-3 or 38-3 in the middle of the second quarter. That was, I guess, if you're a Seahawks fan up there and you go into that game, it's like, well, I guess I can go home and beat the traffic because there's no doubt this game is over. Cowboys at Bears. Bears won that game. That was particularly ugly for the Cowboys. They just got dominated. They are just terrible. I mean, the Cowboys defense is non-existent. It's hard to watch them, only in the sense that if you don't like the Cowboys, like many people, then you're enjoying this. I think the NFL's better when the Cowboys are better. It's sort of like they're the villain of a lot of things, sort of like the Yankees in baseball. When the Yankees are good, it makes baseball better because you have someone to root against. So now Cowboys are terrible. It's going to be a long season of just, poor Cowboys. He. No, I don't care. I think it's the Schadenfreude, the German word for enjoying someone else's misery. And I guess we're going to get a lot of that out of the Cowboys this year. Watching the Cowboys fans suffer. Cardinals at 49ers. 49ers are just hit by terrible injuries. They pulled out the game. I had picked the Cardinals. And they got beat at the gun. There's a last-second field goal and won the game for the 49ers, but 49ers lost their big defensive end, one of the Bosa brothers. I don't know which one is Joey Bosa. I can't remember what the other one is. The other one plays for Buffalo, but the Bosa brother that plays for San Francisco, he tore his ACL. I guess going to be out for the year. Meanwhile, the Cardinals started running back James Conner. He messed up his ankle. I don't know if it was broken or just torn ligaments. A lot of bad stuff happening to his ankle, so he's going to be done for the season. Season-ending surgery, and I don't care. I guess those teams, I don't really follow them. I guess they're kind of forced upon us because in the West here and in New Mexico, we get a lot of the 49ers and Arizona games. So, oh well. Chiefs at Giants. You talk about on paper thinking that's going to be a good game. Sunday night football, prime time Sunday game. And guess what happens? And it was just horrible. Both teams seem to be like they're just terrible. Both teams 0-2 coming in. Someone had to win. I guess there could have been a tie, but the Chiefs won at the end. Poor Giants fans. I guess Russell Wilson is it's amazing how terrible he looked. I mean, he threw for over 400 yards against the Cowboys the week before, thus indicating how terrible the Cowboys defense was. But he looks so bad, and I guess I'm understanding that he's going to be benched. And they're going to start their rookie quarterback Jackson Dart from Ole Miss. I think he was drafted in the top 10, maybe number 6 overall this last year. So I don't know, maybe that'll help them because Russell Wilson can't move. He's so old and just immobile as a quarterback, and throws just interceptions all over the place. I guess can't really gun the ball in. His arm strength is gone. He's always been short, so I think he has trouble seeing out of the pocket with the offense and defensive line in his way. So pretty much over for him, I think. And I guess we're going to move on to the next generation. Lions at Ravens. I had picked the Ravens on that too. So that was another big L for me. That was a pretty good game. I think it was fairly competitive. Lions have regrouped after getting kind of slapped around by the Packers the first week. And then the second week, they beat up on the Bears. And this third week against the Ravens, it was supposed to be, I think the Ravens were favored and at Baltimore. So it was going to be probably, Ravens victory. And turns out it wasn't. It was pretty much dominated by the Lions defense for the most part, because I think they sacked Lamar Jackson. Was it 7 times or something like that? It's just ridiculous. So I don't know, a lot to look forward in those two teams, though, to see how they come out the next couple weeks, to see their trajectories. Where I think I mentioned that the Lions had lost both their offensive and defensive coordinator. Those coordinators became head coaches for other teams, and so there was, I think, a little bit of unsteadiness at both those positions the first week, and it looks like they've got their footing back. And not a Lions fan because they're one of the rivals in the NFC Central Division against my beloved Vikings. So I don't know. I don't want them to. I want them to do okay, but I want the Vikings to do just one level ahead of the Lions all the time. So the look ahead, I guess, for next week. Well, I guess maybe I can recap my fantasy. I lost every fantasy game. My guillotine fantasy, which is they eliminate the lowest scoring team each week. It's a new fantasy league thing that I've tried this year. That Yahoo set up. I do all my Yahoo. I'll do all my fantasy through the Yahoo application, and the guillotine was new to me this year, and so the lowest scoring team is eliminated, and your team is dispersed amongst the rest of the teams that are still alive. So I made it 2 whole weeks in that league before being defeated, and I'm not doing too good on my football this year. But my picks, I think, what was I? Out of 16 games, 1, 2, 3, 4, 12-4. That's not too bad. I think that's correct. So I'll double check and get you the update next week of my total record. So that was just for week 3, 12-4, with no spread, just picking winners again. Theoretically, not too difficult. But all right, let's go on to week 4. This is the best part. Doing some analysis here of my picks and refreshing my mind about what's going on in the NFL as we get ready to do some speculation. I'm not going to say gambling because I don't put any money on this. This is just for my pride and record keeping. Seahawks at Cardinals for the Thursday night game coming up tomorrow night on Amazon Prime. And I'm going to miss it because I'll be hunting. I mean, if I got one even right away on the hunt, it would still be way after the game before I got home to watch it. So anyway, Seahawks at Cardinals. Cardinals, like I said, got the devastating injury for their starting running back. Probably is not going to be as bad as what it could be. It's not like a quarterback. Running backs have become more plug and play in the last few years, but still, the Cardinals aren't good. I don't think the Seahawks are that good, but I think they're better. I'm taking the Seahawks on the road in Arizona. That could be my downfall, but it just seems like the Seahawks just have a little bit better personnel, the way it looks to me. Um, Kyler Murray at quarterback for Arizona, he has just never been the same since he hurt his knee a couple of years ago. I feel sorry for him because he was pretty fun to watch, and I was kind of enjoying watching him because he was very dynamic. He'd move around, run, escape the rush, and now it's it's father time catching up. Even though he's not really that old, he's not Russell Wilson old and like a total statue in the pocket. But he's getting older. So I'm going Seahawks. Vikings at Steelers in Dublin, Ireland. I guess first NFL game ever played in Ireland, and it's technically a home game for the Steelers. But it's the Vikings with Carson Wentz at starting quarterback. I'm just going with my heart. My head is not working on this game. I'm picking the Vikings. This is going to be a tough run for the Vikings because I think they're staying in Europe, and they have a game in London the following week. I think it's the Browns, Cleveland Browns, and we've seen the Cleveland Browns are a little better than what people maybe have thought. So this could be a real difficult stretch for the Vikings, overseas. Redskins at Falcons. This one, I do not like this game. I would never even consider betting money on this game if I was really betting money, which I'm not, and I wasn't anyway. But Redskins on the road at Falcons. Terry McLaurin, I guess, out. I think they said it was a quad injury, and I think those can be very, very touchy. Just like a hamstring, except on the other side of your leg. Just can't explode. And I think then it's in your mind, or it's going to hurt. If it's going to get worse, or I'm going to tear it worse, whatever. So I think he's going to be a very crucial missing piece for them. Jaden Daniels was out. I don't know if he's back in. I'm still picking the Redskins because the Falcons got shut out against Carolina last week. I don't even know if I went over that game in the recap, but that was a shock. I think it was 30-0 in that game, and the starting quarterback, Michael Penix for the Falcons, got benched. They brought in old Kirk Cousins to try to mop up, and I don't know. That was. I guess I'm just like at a loss. It's a toss up. I'm just having, since I have to make a pick, I'm going to pick the Redskins just because I think they have a better team and a better coach. Dan Quinn at head coach for the Redskins versus, I don't even know who the coach is for the Falcons. Raheem Morris, I think. Maybe I'm jumping the gun on the Falcons too, but I think maybe they just totally made a mistake on that quarterback pick. A top 10 overall pick at quarterback when they had paid Kirk Cousins all this money. Yeah, unproven quarterback. He got injured a lot in college, Michael Penix, and I don't know. I think they might be spinning their wheels and suffering for a few years if that's going to be the case for them. Anyway, let's move on to another terrible team, the Saints. I guess it's the NFC South. It's just totally terrible. Like Carolina, Falcons, Saints. The Buccaneers are good, but the rest of that division is just terrible. Saints at Buffalo Bills. I think it's going to be horrible. I think the Bills, even if they don't get focused, they're still going to trounce New Orleans Saints. Never say never. I guess I mean that's why they play the game. Saints are going to travel up there and play, but I don't even know what the point spread is on this. I'm afraid to look at it. I don't use the point spread. I'm just picking games anyway here, but I bet it's a very a wide divide. I would say it's probably 14 point spread on that at least. Cleveland Browns at the Detroit Lions. This one, I'm picking the Lions. That's all I'll say. I think this could be very competitive. I think Cleveland has the number one defense, both run and pass. I think that's what I heard. And the Lions have good offense, decent defense. Lions at home. That's my default position for that. Carolina Panthers at Patriots. Carolina coming off the big victory over the Falcons. Patriots coming off the loss to Steelers. I'm pretty sure the Steelers won the game. Yeah, they recovered after their poor showing the other week. What was it? I moving on. I'm going to pick the Patriots at home against Carolina. I just don't know if the Carolina Panthers have shown anything worthwhile yet. Good luck to them. Don't care about them. Chargers at Giants. Chargers. I'm picking Chargers on this one. They got to come all the way across the country. They play an early game at the Giants. Giants going to have the new starting quarterback. Lots of stuff going on. Lots of moving parts here and there. Chargers, pretty solid team. I'm just going to go with the Chargers. Eagles at Buccaneers. I think both these teams are 3-0. Undefeated teams going up against each other at Buccaneers. Eagles in Florida, in Tampa Bay, playing the Buccaneers. I'm picking Eagles. They got a solid defense, solid offense. Offense is very conservative still. I don't think they've pulled anything out yet, just tried to show anything. I think maybe they'll start ramping stuff up a little more as they get used to some of their new players, a new line. So I'm picking Eagles. Again, no money. I'm not betting real money, so if I was, I would just not even bother even looking at that game for betting. Titans at Texans. Two teams I don't care about. They both start with T. Titans at Texans. I'm going to go Texans because they're at home. I think both are 0-3. There's got to be a winner. Again, technically there could be a tie, but the Titans have a rookie quarterback, and I have zero confidence that he can understand exactly what's going on at this level quite yet. So I'm going Houston Texans. Colts at Rams. Indianapolis Colts undefeated. Rams got beat. I think they're 2-1 now. They got beat by the Eagles last week on the fluke blocked field goal return for touchdown. I'm still going to pick the Rams because I think they have a good coach. They have Matthew Stafford at quarterback. They just know how to win. They got a consistently solid defense, just no name defense, just all decent players. Seem like they don't have any stars, but they just show up and play, and just nothing glamorous. Just go out there and win games. So Jacksonville at 49ers. 49ers are undefeated 3-0. Jacksonville, I think, is 1-2 on the season. I'm picking 49ers because they're at home. The 49ers have so many injuries, but they're playing at home. I think it's hard to play in San Francisco for some reason. Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence might be in his last gasp here for actually being an NFL starter, so we'll see what happens. This picking 49ers. Ravens at Chiefs. Now this game, both teams are 1-2. Both teams have been perennial playoff teams, deep runs in the playoffs. Of course, Chiefs dynasty is probably over, but they're still fighting. I'm picking Ravens because they're more desperate, I think. Derrick Henry's fumbled 3 games in a row with very costly fumbles. I think he's going to come out with a chip on his shoulder. Chiefs defense is pretty good, but I think they're going to wear down, and the Ravens will come out on top against the Chiefs. Bears at Raiders. This one, again, this is a total question mark. I just went with the Raiders because they're at home, and I think they have a little better experience and depth, some of their positions. Again, do not take my advice on this. If this was real money I was betting, I wouldn't even look at this game, but I'm going to take the Raiders at home. Bears beat the Cowboys. I don't think that means anything this year with the Cowboys status as far as what we're looking at for their ability to compete. If you beat the Cowboys this year, I think it's not a measure of your competence in the NFL right now. Jets at Dolphins. This AFC East battle. I think are they both 0-3? Maybe the Jets have one game. I don't know. I think the Dolphins are more desperate. They're playing at home in the heat. Just got to travel down there from New York. It's not that big of a trip, but I think the Dolphins will fight for their coach. I think it's going to be I wouldn't be surprised to see Dolphins beat them by double digits. But again, in real money, I would not bet this game at all because you have no idea who's going to show up. I did find out that the Jets have Tyrod Taylor as their backup quarterback. He's been a journeyman quarterback. I think he hung in there pretty good against the Buccaneers, and they almost pulled it off with that blocked field goal at the end last week. But I, I I don't think they're gonna be able to hang with the Dolphins. We'll see. I mean, it's another one. That's a Monday night game. They have a doubleheader on Monday night, which I don't know why they do that. Kind of bugs me because instead of just featuring the one primetime game, they start one and then at halftime the other one kind of kicks off. It seems like, and then they have overlapping games. Maybe it's because they want to show two games just in case one game is blowout or who knows what. And in some respects, it's good because you could have thunderstorms in Miami and delay the game. So then people would just tune out so they could have a different game they could turn on. Bengals at Broncos, which I'm sitting here kind of skipping over that, but Bengals are a terrible team. Joe Burrow's out. They can't function as an offense. Their defense is terrible as usual. I think that was the whole thing before. Joe Burrow was just outscoring teams. They'd score 30 points a game and still lose half the games. So I feel sorry for the Bengals in a lot of ways. Um, but the Broncos, which I hate, Sean Payton, I hate him. I'm still picking them. And in fact, that's my survivor pick. So survivor pick is, of course, you have to pick a team. And if they win, then you advance, and then you can only pick them once during the season. So then you have to pick. So far, I picked the Cowboys and the Seahawks to win. I've survived barely each week, and I didn't get the pool set up in time for the first week. So that's probably a miracle that I didn't get it set up because I probably would have been eliminated. You just get one strike. Usually I set the pool up that we have. You get 3 strikes and you're out. And this year I goofed up and only got 1 strike per person. And I think we have 9 people and 3 people are already out. And 2 of the people got out because they didn't even make a pick. So that's kind of brutal for those people. Anyway, that's the NFL picks for this week. I mean, it's a pretty decent slate of games and should be enjoyable. Early season matchup, and this will be the week 4, I believe. So that's getting close to a quarter of the way through the season. So we start, kind of figuring out who's who and what's what, and maybe who's good and who's bad. And I will say this, that to me, there seems like there's a very large chasm in the talent in the NFL this year. You have teams that are just absolutely bottom feeders, and then there's a very narrow group that's right in the middle that are okay, and then there's a small group that's elite, that I would say are elite, and you could probably count on them at being in the playoffs. But the gaps between the talents on the team seems like it's wider than ever, and I think there's going to be a lot more blowouts than the NFL would like to see, because the NFL is a league of parity. They want games coming down to that last second field goal, last second touchdown, overtime, and I think it's going the wrong way for them right now for whatever reason. Maybe it's coaching and just general managers and player personnel people that are missing on talent evaluation. That's my guess. I could be wrong. We'll see. That's why it's so addictive to watch NFL, because things can change so quickly and get some injuries to some of these teams, and suddenly they're just an average looking team, and it makes it watchable. That's for sure. All right, moving on to the next topic, and this is the Colonel and the Kid. And what I'm hoping to do here for this podcast is I want to catch up, and I'm hoping that I can put some of these images from the memoir itself, put them into the podcast if you're watching, and then you can see some of these great photos that I have, some of the historic photos got from my grandma and grandpa and my aunt Kathy and my mom. And I I'm learning more and more how to podcast stuff and add additional things and put more images on. I'm hoping I'm learning, and this is going to be the good grand experiment. So I'm just going to read the captions on the first two chapters of the photos that I didn't address while I was just reading it, just doing the oral um, reading of the memoir. And this time I'm going to try to catch up. I'll do the first chapter, which was chapter 1, the nicknames and introduction, and then we'll do chapter 2. The same thing. I'll read the captions to those photos, and that was the age-old question. And then we'll get into chapter 3, which chapter 3 today, the title of that chapter is the Coonskin Cap, and you'll see some more classic photos from that. So anyway, I'll read the caption, and then hopefully once I get into post-production on this, I can go in and put the actual image up on the screen, and people that watch this podcast, they can see the actual pictures I'm referring to. So chapter 1, the nicknames and introduction. So the first picture that I used, the caption was Grandpa as a young soldier. This is likely circa 1942. Official portrait of his officer training school, OTS. And I say that with such confidence, but I have no idea if that's the official portrait. Good looking guy though. I see the family resemblance in my older brother with my grandpa Hagen and Grady. It seems like they have very, very similar facial structure, and it's just as my brother gets older, my older brother gets older, he looks more and more like my grandpa, and that's one of the reasons that I think I talked about in chapter 2 is that Grady is the new old timer, and that was one of Grandpa's nicknames. And it brings a smile to my face to talk about that and be able to see these photos. The second photo, the caption reads, Grandpa, center, as an old soldier, Lieutenant Colonel Hagen flying on a cargo plane for a training deployment with South Dakota Army National Guard, circa 1966. I wanted to find a retirement photo from the end of his service with the formal dress uniform and the dress greens, but alas, there was none to be found. This candid shot works well enough, though, and to describe the picture for those just listening, it's my grandpa in the old green fatigues from the 1960s. They're not camouflage, they're just the olive drab, and they're on a cargo plane with the cargo netting seats. The cargo mesh seats are very uncomfortable. If you've ever flown on a military plane with cargo net seats, it's terrible. And they have the golden coyote patch on their shoulder, which is the National Guard patch for the South Dakota National Guard. And my grandpa's sitting next to I guess one of his officer buddies there, and I think his buddy is smoking a big cigar on the military flight. So the times have changed a lot as far as that goes. The smoke. I just can't imagine that must have been just quite the stench on that plane. People smoking cigars as they travel to their deployment, their training deployment. So on the third photo, and this is the stock photo I used for the colonel and the kid. It's me and my grandpa, the colonel and the kid themselves. And this is I'll just read the caption and describe a little more for those that are not seeing it. Greg and Grandpa top Beartooth Pass in Montana. The colonel and the kid, circa 1977. So we're up on this little pullout on the Beartooth Pass, and you can see the big mountains in the background. And it's kind of chilly. I'm wearing a sweatshirt with my hood up, and my grandpa's got his sweater on, with a collared shirt, and he's wearing his little flat cap, like a little newsboy cap, and that tradition of his style, and smiling at the camera, and this is the image I have when I think about my grandpa, of me as a kid and him as an adult that I looked up to so much, and it's just a pleasure to see. So on to the fourth image, and this is from, again, the nicknames, and this is I'll just read the caption and we'll talk about it. And it goes. The inscription on this photo reads, "Beeve, thanks from the NSC, Northern State College Marching Band, Darwin Walker, director." And I had a question. I don't know if that was the actual director's name. I couldn't read the writing for sure. And Grandpa was a member of the Black Hawk drill team, a group that was part of Assistant South Dakota American Legion Post number 50. The Blackhawks presented the colors at the Minnesota Vikings football game, along with the NSC marching band circa 1965. Northern State College is now Northern State University, and the alma mater of my mom, Carol E. Heitmann. So there's a great picture of that. And unfortunately, it's black and white. So when I do get this image up, it's not going to be this vivid colors that it could have been with the United States flag there, and their Black Hawk uniforms with their midnight blue and their yellow trim. So we'll get those posted up there, hopefully in line with the podcast, and you can see them if you do watch the video podcast. Otherwise, you're missing out. And if you listen to it, maybe you can go to YouTube and see the video podcast just as a special occasion. And now we're going to go to chapter 2, get those photos read into the record so we can get caught up. So the first photo I have in chapter 2, which was the age-old question, it's a photo of my brother and his family. For those not able to see this, it's Grady holding his first grandchild, Oakley, in his arms, and to my brother's right is his youngest daughter, Shayna, and she was Miss Faulkton for the Snow Queen contest that year. And to Shayna's right is Caitlin, and that's Oakley's mother, and the first grandchild, the mother of the first grandchild for Grady. And then to Caitlin's right is Bobby. That's Caitlin's mom and Grady's wife. And then on the other side of Grady, to the left, is Kristen, Grady's oldest daughter. And then to the left of Kristen is my mom, Carol Lee. So I'll read the caption, then you can, if you're watching this, you'll see it. Hopefully it's posted up while I'm talking about this, but otherwise I'm just giving a description for those that aren't able to see the video. And the caption reads, "My older brother Grady with Oakley, his first grandchild. Oakley Bunkers, daughter of Caitlin and Colby Bunkers." So Caitlin's married to Colby, and they live down in Del Rapids, South Dakota. And then pictured are Bobby, Grady's wife, Caitlin Bunkers, Grady's second oldest daughter, Shayna, Grady's youngest daughter, Grady, Kristen Dykema, Grady's oldest daughter, and Carolee, my mom. They are gathered for the Faulkton Snow Queen contest where Shayna was crowned queen, November 2021. And I can't remember exactly. Shayna went on to win some state. She wasn't the South Dakota Snow Queen, but she was one of the seasons, and she had to perform throughout the year and go to parades and stuff. I don't know if she was maybe Miss Spring or Miss Fall or Miss Summer. I don't know. And then there's the Snow Queen. So she was in the top 4 for the state title. So she's looking very good in her Snow Queen sash that says Miss Faulkton, and she's got a little tiara on top of her head. So pretty cool. And then the next photo in the chapter 2 is a super old photo. I'm just going to read the caption and then I'll describe it. Grandpa, the original old timer, holding grandson Garrett as the grandparents see the new baby in Belcourt, North Dakota for the first time. That's me in the middle with a safe and some money. Grady sits next to Grandma, and the photo was circa 1974. So they're my grandparents are there visiting us in Belcourt, North Dakota, and I'm like 5 years old, I think, and they're on this flowered couch. The great design of the 1970s, and there's some sort of weird, well, not weird. I always liked that oil painting or oil print, framed oil print behind the couch. Um, I know it was out in the garage for a long time and in Groton before my mom sold her house and moved to Aberdeen. But um, it's a pretty cool photo, and I always like that. I still have that safe. I don't know if I have that very dollar, but I do have that safe in my in my possession still. And the third photo of chapter 2 was, I'll just read the caption and describe it here. Shiner the dog that came with the house in Belcourt, North Dakota. Here, Shiner observes the festivities of Grady's 6th birthday. Per the photo, August 1972. And I guess that's in the old days. They developed photos and they'd have the date on the little border. There used to be a little white border around some of the photos, and this was a square photo, and Grady's birthday party at the government house, and there's bunch of kids standing in line with party hats on, and here's this black dog laying on the ground in the background. Just kind of makes me laugh. And the final photo for the age-old question chapter 2, the caption reads, photo of Grady and Greg in the middle of the sandbox at the government house in Belcourt, North Dakota. Note the flowers in bloom in the background. Per the photo, August 1974. So it's just a picture of us two kids playing in just a flattened out pile of sand with our Tonka toys, and in the background there's some what I had officially called hollyhocks in the book at some point in the memoir, because the hollyhocks were transplanted I think pretty much at every house we ever lived in as we moved around the country when I was younger, before settling in Groton, South Dakota. And it's a pretty cool photo. 1974, and like 51 years ago now. So it's very very nostalgic to see these photos. So I'm going to go ahead and read chapter 3. Chapter 3 of the Colonel and the Kid memoir. And this title of this chapter is The Coonskin Cap, hence why I'm decked out in this. If you're watching this, you see me with my coonskin cap. And as usual, I like to start the chapter with a quote. And this quote is from Frank Sinatra. And it says, quote, "Cock your hat. Angles are attitudes," end quote. And I really like that summary of how to wear a hat, I guess. So you can see that I'm just wearing this hat a little bit at a cocked angle because I wanted the tail to be visual instead of just being directly behind me. And let's go ahead and read this chapter. This chapter must be read with Tennessee Ernie Ford's Ballad of Davy Crockett playing in the back of your mind. I believe it was seeing the Walt Disney production of Davy Crockett that put it in my head that I needed a coonskin cap just like the King of the Wild Frontier. That's my theory behind my deep childhood desire for a coonskin cap. I blame Walt Disney. The backstory involves Grandma and Grandpa Hagen as enablers for a young lad. I'm guessing I was 8 years old or thereabouts. One of the fantastical tributes upon arriving to Grandma and Grandpa's for visit is that each grandchild would get $1. $1. This is an incalculable sum of money for a child in the 1970s. It boggled a kid's mind, at least my mind. Of course, our trips to the grandparents brought us to Siston, South Dakota, a bustling town of about 3,000 citizens back in its heyday. In the olden days, Siston had stores that fronted the downtown central business district. Back when a main street was a main street, Stavig Brothers department store is a distant memory now. But with a quick check of the internet, I was able to confirm that ANC Variety is still in business today. It's part of the True Value Hardware Network now, but during my quest for a Coonskin Cap as a child, it was nirvana. You see, ANC Variety was the pinnacle of a young boy's amazement. The store had it all. A candy aisle that seemed impossibly huge, and sitting opposite an aisle or two of toys targeted perfectly for a little boy. I remember plastic scale models of World War II airplanes, tanks, and ships, slinkies, the classic balsa wood airplanes that you assembled and included the rubber band powered propeller. Oh my God, the hours of fascination I could spend there. This is where the little Greg's treasure was found. The coonskin cap, the coonskin cap that would make me Davy Crockett. However, there was a problem, a big obstacle in the way of every hero on a journey. I only had $1 to spend, and that coonskin cap was $3.99. It wasn't much of a decision. I would save my money. This was the beginning of a tale that would be recounted by my grandma many times in the years after. Grandma and Grandpa were amazed by my discipline. 30 and 40 years later, I can still Grandma shaking her head and grinning as she described my stalwart attitude to attain that coonskin cap. I got the coonskin cap. I think it took a couple years and multiple visits to Grandma and Grandpa, but I bought that raccoon-tailed cap. The coonskin cap itself wasn't much. It had a real raccoon tail attached to a faux fur beanie-type hat. I'm sad to say I don't have the original coonskin cap. I'm not even sure what happened to it. I guess Grady had something to do with its disappearance, but it doesn't even really matter. Grady replaced it with a lower quality coonskin cap quite a few years ago. And on top of the replacement cap itself, that I'm wearing right here, he gave me a tanned hide of a giant raccoon that he had bought from a local fur trader in Falkton, South Dakota. I have displayed that raccoon for nearly 20 years. It's about 3.5 feet long from nose to tail. I recently packed it up for my return to South Dakota, and it's a little faded and the tip of the tail fell off because it was in the sun so long. It will be repaired and displayed when I settle in my retirement home. Location yet to be determined. Probably Santa Fe, New Mexico, where I am now, but we'll see how that goes. So anyway, this is the first photo in chapter 3, and I'm going to go ahead and read that now, and then hopefully be able to insert this visual into the reading for a little bit while I narrate the caption. And you can see this. And for those not watching or seeing the video podcast, it's a picture of a Texas Longhorn horns mounted on the wall, and hanging from one of the tips of the horns is the coonskin cap that I'm actually wearing now. And the caption reads, "Photo of modern day coonskin cap given to me to replace the original ANC Variety purchase. The quality just isn't there from the faux cap to the real raccoon tail. It's just not as good as the original. On display in my Santa Fe house, the coonskin cap hangs from my Texas Longhorn mount." And here's a photo of another photo, and the caption reads, "Tanned raccoon hide from Grady on display in my Fort Pierre house." Fort Pierre, whereas I lived there for a couple years before I moved back to Santa Fe. And you can see that raccoon is pretty long. It's probably, I don't know, 4 foot long from tip of the nose to the tail. So it was a big raccoon someone got, and had the hide of that raccoon tanned. All this discussion on headgear leads up to Grandpa's choice of stylish caps. Grandpa wore what is known as the flat cap or newsboy style hat. It's a classic cap and something I will forever associate with the man. I wonder what happened to his collection of hats. I never did do this, but I have an imaginary conversation in my mind about asking, "Grandpa, why do you wear that cap you wear?" But that question goes unanswered. A likely answer from Grandpa would be accompanied with a shrug of shoulders, "Because I like them." And I wanted to talk about the photo, and it's a photo of my grandpa with his flat cap, circa 1983. I'm not exactly sure how accurate these dates are, but for those not watching the video podcast, it's a picture of my grandpa. He's got this white, flat newsboy type cap, and he's wearing a yellow shirt, and he's leaning up against the car. I think we were taking off. We had visited. Visited him and Grandma at their house in Siston, South Dakota, and we were getting ready to go. And I think my dad had the camera and took some photos back then, 1983. Anyway, Grandpa's answer, because I like them. I assume that's the way he would have answered. I feel so bad that I didn't know enough to ask such questions as a little kid. I would have only been like, 14 years old at the time, living in my own teenage world of problems and trying to grow up and get by as a teenager. Just didn't have the knowledge to be able to ask questions of my grandfather at that time. Anyway, continuing on with the memoir. No pretense, no reconciliation. Just a short and sweet answer from a man that didn't put up with nonsense, unless it was dished out by a foolish child like me. I'm shying away from a narrative description of Grandpa Hagen at this point. You can refer to the cover photo of the book or go ahead and flip through the pages to review some of the photos. Either way, you'll likely get a smile. I know seeing the pictures never grows old for me. And speaking of old pictures and growing old, I have this picture in the chapter here has got to be one of my favorites. I'll read the caption and then describe it. This has to be one of my favorite photos. Straight out of The Little Rascals, this photo of Grandpa as a kid, top row left, with his hat at an appropriate angle, circa 1927. And again, I'm guessing at the age, but it's just hard to believe that I never knew these photos existed until just a couple of years ago. And then I got images of them and was able to include them in the memoir here, but this one's just perfect for me at Grandpa's hat, just at a crazy, I don't know, probably 45-degree angle on his head. He's really smiling. He's got, there's four people, three people in the back, and then a person in the middle, and then two up front, and the dog's in the middle. Just like, it's the perfect Little Rascals image in my mind. And Grandpa probably being more like Spanky. That's the way I pictured him. And he's really smiling, and I can just see the family resemblance, and the way I see it with my older brother Grady and then his son Derek. It just, to me, the genetics just are unbelievably similar. And then moving to the next photo, this one I really liked, and I'll read the caption here and then describe. Not to be overshadowed in my list of favorites, Grandpa in a fedora with his hat cocked perfectly, doing his best impression of old Blue Eyes, and he's standing in front of a car, and it's got, I don't know, it says Florida on where the license plate is, and I guess I failed to put the date on here. I don't know what the date was. It's circa, probably, I'm going to say he's probably 20. So it's probably, I don't know, 1937 maybe. That's my guess. Maybe I can do some research and fix that up in the actual publication of the memoir. But he's wearing a suit and he's got this fedora on. Just reminds me of Frank Sinatra in that sense. And then finally, I'll read the caption and describe this one. You can see the pattern here. Even the military couldn't snuff out Grandpa's stylish flair for headgear. Not the standard GI designated style on display with this soldier. And he's got his hat kind of cocked. Again, it's cocked to towards the right side of his head. Probably not a 45-degree angle, but more like a 25 or 30-degree angle. And he's standing on a step of a beat up barracks, it looks like. The steps are just barely hanging on. Looks like they have a bunch of gravel at the bottom of the steps because it's just probably a mud hole if it rained, but he's wearing his army uniform. He's holding probably an M1 rifle there. I don't know if that's, that is OTS or whatever it was, but classic attire, and that really befits Grandpa's style and his hats. And to close the chapter out, chapter 3, the Coonskin Cap, I end with this. I feel obliged to include this quote based on my own time in Texas and my affinity for coonskin caps. And this is Davy Crockett's quote. Quote, You may all go to hell, and I will go to Texas, end quote. And Davy Crockett was killed at the Alamo way back when, probably was 1835 or so, when the Alamo fell and the Mexican army killed everybody. But I lived in Texas for just about 2 years. I worked in Austin, lived in the suburb of Pflugerville, and that's a little comment on the actual memoir. That's actually not in the memoir, but I will just add that in the memoir. The memoir reading for today's chapter 3 has ended, and I think I'll probably have to wrap up because I think we're approaching an hour, and I don't really want to go. Oh yeah, we're right at an hour right now. I do have some other things I'd like to share, but I will save them for a future podcast. I have some other things to do today. Very busy in retirement. So I apologize. I have to cut it short a little bit. I will make this announcement that I did actually send my Perfect 10 music into the SiriusXM email box, and you can send your own classic 80s hits to channel 25 of SiriusXM, and you can put your 10 favorite songs from the 1980s rock through my Perfect 10, and 10 is a 1 and a 0, at SiriusXM.com. And they're going to be playing people that submit some, they're going to pick people's top 10 songs, their Perfect 10, on October 10th, which is 10/10, coming up in just a couple weeks. And they'll be playing people's playlists all day for 24 hours on the Perfect 10. So I'm going to wrap it up here. Cutting it short, pretty NFL dominated podcast today. And I'm hoping to get some editing post production here on some of the images for the memoir itself. And I really appreciate you hanging in there with me and my read aloud. Hopefully it's getting better. I get some sense that it's not, because I start wandering and start adding more comments instead of just reading the stuff just straight up and leaving it as it is. So I promise I'll try to work on it and get better. But with that said, thanks for joining the podcast today, the Colonel and Kid podcast. Stay positive. I'll see you next time. I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna say goodbye. I'll just see you next time. And I like to end, with a positive note. And that, to me, that is, just keeping your attitude in the positive fashion, taking action. It's really up to you to determine your own attitude. So be positive. You decide. You make the decision. You be proactive and do this. Have that good attitude. And I'll leave you with this. Knock, and door will be open to you. Seek, and you'll find. Ask, and you shall receive. Thanks again, and I'll see you soon.